Prime Minister says the region's education system must be the driving force for building resilient populations. This story and more in the National Report.
Do you know that you can lower your electricity bill by switching to energy-efficient appliances? By switching to energy-efficient appliances, you can help lower your energy usage. Your refrigerator, for example, is amongst the highest energy-consuming appliances within your home as it remains running throughout the day and night. Switching to an energy-efficient refrigerator can lower your electricity bill by up to 40%. As an individual consumer, I cannot impact global fuel prices. However, I can ease the burden of rising fuel rates by switching to energy-efficient appliances. What can you do?
Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
With the details to the news for Wednesday, 14th September 2022, I am Abigail McIntyre. Grenada's Prime Minister, the Honourable Dickon Mitchell, says the region's education system must be the catalyst for resilient populations in the Caribbean. But if this is to be realized, certification cannot be the sole focus. Mr. Mitchell was a guest panelist at the OECS USAID UNICEF CEO breakfast at the Radisson Hotel on Wednesday, which was held under the theme Reimagining the OECS Opportunities and Innovate Forward. Aligning this to government's transformational agenda, Prime Minister Mitchell said the region needs to do more in allocating funds towards education and to cease in perpetuating the myth that certification alone is education.
We have to take a fundamental relook of our education system. And then we also need to look at the question of skills training and vocational skills. I think we've talked a lot about it, but if you examine the reality in Grenada, and those are some of the stark realities. If NULO didn't exist, for example, most of the hotels would not have air conditioning and refrigeration technicians. A lot of the construction companies would not have plumbers, etc., etc. The hospitality industry would be woefully short on a lot of the persons who work in the hotels. And let me say this, NULO, up until recently, never got any state or government subventions. It was completely funded by NGOs. Recently, the government has stepped in and begun underwriting the cost of paying instructors. But you take NULO out of the equation, and the question is from 1983-84 onwards, you would essentially have had no dedicated vocational national institution in Grenada. The percentage of people who do vocational skills training at TAMCC is woefully inadequate. And I want us to understand the statistics. 2,600 plus students sat what I still call CXC. I guess the names are longer now. Of that 2,600, what is the capacity of TAMCC and NULO to absorb the 2,600? And what happens to the rest of them? Where is the continuing skills training, vocational training, opportunities for further enhanced education? It doesn't exist.
Director General of the OECS, Dr. Didicus Jules, supports the comments of Prime Minister Mitchell and adds that subjects like agriculture needs to be revamped in schools if the region is to ensure a sustainable future in food security.
We have traditionally taught agriculture in school as if it is still a cutlass and hoe technology. All of these new technologies need to be introduced in the syllabus in schools. In CXC, for example, the agricultural syllabus needs to be revised. We need to look at the access of capital for agricultural and agro-entrepreneurs. We need to look at how we move from just the production of food to the manufacture of value added in food products. So we're moving from just, say, growing bananas to creating banana products, breadfruit flour, and all of that. I remember in St. Lucia, there's a very interesting thing that happened. Mushrooms, locally grown mushrooms, is a big thing. And by the way, Prime Minister Mitchell, they're being grown in containers using solar power because it requires a very special climate to do that. And this thing has become a big industry in St. Lucia now. It started with primary school dropouts in a community called Babono. And what happened there was that An English guy came down, looked at what was available on the supermarket shelves, and asked himself, what are the products, high-value products that could be grown in St. Lucia? And of all things that probably nobody else might have thought of was mushrooms. And he then proceeded to set up these containers, solar-powered, hire young people, got them in as shareholders of the business. And this has now become a six-figure agricultural enterprise.
Regional Representative for USAID Eastern Caribbean Office, Clinton White, says his organization is keen on assisting Caribbean countries achieve its goals for sustainability and resilience in the various sectors.
For example, here in Grenada, we've been working on what we call our carriacou program, which is actually working with the police and other law enforcement to automate their crime data systems so that you get away from a manual system and now you have an automated system, which we call our police record management information system, so that then it becomes much easier for the police to have information inputted into a system that not only they're accessing, but they can access in the other police stations throughout the country. We've been able to install 11 out of the 14 police stations this automated system. We've also been able to use Grenada as a model for this carriacou throughout the Caribbean region. And this says a lot about the technical skills that they also have, because with this system there was a lot of training, but also their trainers became trainer of trainers. And so now, again, as I said, they're the leading model for us, and they're continuing to advance it. We're looking forward to the new program launching again so that we can continue this work. But this is an innovative tool that is being used that now is helping in the fight against crime.
The parish of St. David has the highest number of applications for housing repairs, and Prime Minister and Parliamentary Representative for the area, the Honorable Dickon Mitchell, is working assiduously to address this issue. The constituency of St. George Northeast is ranked second. Housing is a major problem for citizens of Grenada, where either owning or maintaining a home is difficult. Government is cognizant of this and so began to tackle the issue by first meeting with professionals and skilled laborers in the building construction field. An open house meeting was held Tuesday evening at the Corinth Low-Income Housing Project site, where over 200 housing units will be distributed before the end of 2022. Prime Minister Mitchell admitted that government cannot address every housing issue on its own, but would require a public-private partnership that includes a working partnership with contractors and builders.
Even if we can give people materials, somebody has to repair the house. Somebody has to help to renovate the house. And if we do not have competent people doing it, then you're probably throwing the materials down the drain. Because tool will rain, tool will wind, and you'll be right back where we started. So part of the reason for inviting you here today is, in fact, to let you know of the critical need for housing assistance, repairs to houses, the need to build new houses throughout St. David and by extension throughout the length and breadth of Grenada. And we want to be able to come up with the appropriate housing repair, housing assistance, and housing program with your input. It's easy for me as the Prime Minister to say I want to build 500 houses. It's easy for the Minister of Housing to say that as well. But for us to implement that, we need to be in consultation with you. We need to have your ideas, your recommendations as to how we go about achieving this aim. Because this will have to be done in conjunction with the government and the private citizens. It will have to be a public-private partnership.
Government is also looking into a number of possibilities for meeting the housing needs of citizens.
2 steps down the road from here, for example, you have the Point Marquis development. There's still significant acreage of land left there. So from where we sit, it's an opportunity for the government to partner with someone like Point Marquis to be able to create some of the housing that we want. And there are models that we can use. I could give an example where in places like the Bahamas, the government provides the land, the government does the infrastructure, and hands over the construction of the homes to private contractors, and the private contractors sell homes at a price that allows the government to recover its land, recover its infrastructure investment, and the financing comes from a mortgage bank or a development bank, as the case may be. That's just one model that we can look at. You can look at another model where the government itself provides the land, builds the homes, and then do a lease to own, or simply straight out sells the homes to homeowners who can afford it. So the models are going to be different because we have to be able to look at the different income levels of people. And there's also the challenge of land ownership, because land prices have, particularly in the south of the island, and to some extent also impacting on St. David, land prices have gone up quite a lot. And there are a lot of persons who, even fully employed, are unable to meet the kind of commitments one would expect from being able to buy land. And if you can't buy land, you can't build homes. Certainly the traditional homes that we used to in Grenada.
Governor General Her Excellency Dame Cecile La Grenade left here on Wednesday to attend the state funeral of Queen Elizabeth II, who died last week. Dame Cecile, who will be out of state for at least 1 week, will be accompanied to Her Majesty's funeral at Westminster Abbey by Resident High Commissioner Keisha Grant. President of the Senate, Dr. Decima Williams, will act as Governor General in the absence of Dame Cecile. Prime Minister Honorable Dickon Mitchell also left the country today to attend the 84th conference of the People's National Party, also known as the PNP, in Jamaica, where he will deliver the feature address on the occasion of the PNP's 84th anniversary on Thursday, September 15th, following which he will travel to New York to participate in the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly, also known as the UNGA 77. There, he will begin a series of engagements as part of the UNGA 77 that include meetings with world leaders to discuss global issues with implications for Grenada and the small island states of the Caribbean. Prime Minister Mitchell will be accompanied in New York by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Export Development, the Honorable Joseph Andel, and a delegation from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Notable engagements include Honorable Dickon Mitchell's participation as a keynote speaker at the United Nations Foundation's Unlock the Future of Learning event to be held on September 19 at the Ford Foundation in New York. The audience will include leaders, education champions, young change makers, and activists from around the world. The Honorable Prime Minister is also expected to address the high-level general debate on Saturday, September 24th. Any changes in the schedule will be communicated via the Government Information Service. The delegation is scheduled to return on September 25th, 2022. Honorable Dennis Cornwall, Minister for Infrastructure and Physical Development, Public Utilities, Civil Aviation and Transportation, has been appointed Acting Prime Minister in the absence of Prime Minister Mitchell. This is the National Report. The news will continue after the break.
Prepare for hurricane. Prepare for hurricane. Make sure you have your radio and your batteries too. Waterproof flashlight candles will do. Tin stuff, garbage bag, first aid kit. Come on people, make sure you have it. Clean water in a container and a hurricane plan. Hear me no man.
Hurricane damage is beyond your control. Surviving the aftermath is up to you. Have a hurricane plan. It can save your life and your family too.
Prepare for hurricane. Your hair, prepare for hurricane.
Welcome back. The Grenada Electricity Services Limited, Grenlec, is discontinuing a temporary decrease in the non-fuel rate of electricity. The company says this took effect on September 9th. The 25% decrease per kilowatt in the non-fuel charge across all customer categories was implemented in January 2022 to provide some relief to electricity customers in the face of rising food prices. Grenlec's acting general manager Clive Holston says while it was understood that the significant decrease would negatively impact the company's operations and finances, it was important to take some meaningful action to help customers. But he says as it stands now, they need to remove the 25% decrease if they are to stabilize the company's finances.
Right now we're at a point where this 25% decrease has gone on for 8 months, and it is definitely having that, negative financial impact. So it's one that we have to remove immediately, in order to stabilize the finances for the company. We know that it is tough times for everyone out there, all customers. Fuel prices have risen drastically from the beginning of this year, and it is now at an all-time high. But this is one of the decisions that we have to make. We know it's going to affect customers out there. It's going to affect businesses.
In a statement issued on Tuesday, the company said the rate reduction has lessened the severe impact of high electricity prices, which have been climbing since January 2021 because of increases in world fuel prices. Fuel charged to customers is currently at a record high 87 cents per kilowatt. Acknowledging the gravity of the situation for the company as well as customers, Clive Hostin says the timing of the discontinuation of the 25% reduction cannot be further delayed. And as the world energy crisis persists, Mr. Hostin appeals to all to be mindful of their energy consumption.
We ask that you pay, prudent attention to your bill, energy management, energy conservation, energy efficiency. Avoid wasting electricity as much as you can. The electricity price that we're going back to, that by removing that 25% decrease, is one in which there has been only a 3 cents change for 30 years. So with that, it shows that the company has been doing quite a lot in terms of efficiency, improving reliability over the years, based on our standard non-fuel charge.
The company will bill usage prior to 9 September 2022 at the reduced temporary rate. A delegation from the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture is visiting Carriacou and Petite Martinique as part of efforts between the Ministry and the Ministry of Carriacou and Petite Martinique and the local government to discuss varying issues of mutual interest. Permanent Secretary Mr. Norman Gilbert says the engagement is in line with government's transformation agenda.
Look at the work plan for the remainder of the year. The minister would also accompany us on the visit as well, to obviously has his inaugural visit to the youth organizations, the schools, as well as the Ministry of Carriacou Petite Martinique Affairs, to discuss with the stakeholders there what is it that is in plan for Carriacou in terms of the transformational agenda of government. And so the next few days will be quite packed with those activities, and we are looking forward to a very successful event.
The team's itinerary includes a meeting with senior coaches and coaching staff, a leadership and mentorship workshop, a meeting with groundsmen, a visit to all playing fields on the Sister Isles, and a youth symposium.
You know that we are moving into a new transformational agenda, which obviously we have to look at changing the objectives, looking at where the ministry is currently and where the ministry would like to go based on the policy directive of government. And this is important for us because we also want to be able to engage the staff. I mean, we understand the physical disconnect that we have based on our physical location. And so to be able to embrace the staff and to be able to listen to their concerns and queries and be able to provide responses, we believe is important, so that they also believe that we are closely connected in terms of the work that we do. But of critical importance is the engagement with the stakeholders, both youth, sports and culture, and to ensure that whatever happens on mainland also happens in Carriacou in terms of programs and projects of the ministry. So this is a very important engagement for us.
The team comprises Permanent Secretary Mr. Norman Gilbert, Coordinator of Sports Mr. Curlin Peters, Acting Chief Cultural Officer Mr. Adrian Mark, Acting Coordinator of Youth Development Mr. Earl Williams, and Program Manager of the new Imani program Ms. Jessie Cumberbatch. They will also be joined by Minister with Responsibility for Youth, Sports and Culture, the Honorable Ron Redhead. The team will return to Grenada on Monday, 19th September 2022. And that story brings us to the end of the National Report for today, Wednesday, 13th September 2022. Recapping the top story, Prime Minister says the region's education system must be a driving force for building resilient populations. On behalf of the entire news team here at the Government Information Service, I am Abigail McIntyre. Thank you for joining us.